the second part of chapter 8, and today we're looking at where Christians agree and disagree about evolution. This is based on pages 187 through 191. So there are a range of Christian responses to evolution. Some of you may remember these from the first quarter, where we talked about the range of these responses to Christian evolution being with young Earth creationists. The second group that we also see in this range is those who are progressive creationists. And the third group that we see in this range is what we've called evolutionary creationists. These are the typical responses to evolution that we see among Christians. Young Earth creationists, progressive creationists, and evolutionary creationists. Now, with these three, we're going to basically take a look at the 5 definitions of evolution that we had from last week in our test and in your lectures from the last 2 weeks. And we're going to be looking at how young Earth creationists look at those 5 definitions, progressive creationists and evolutionary creationists, and what they say. All right, so let's take a quick gander here. So young Earth creationists, they typically accept microevolution. They say that the Earth is young. They reject the fossil record. They reject fossil records saying that they don't show a pattern of change over time. They reject these. So if you remember, the 5 stances were microevolution, change over time, common ancestry, right? They reject common ancestry as well. And they reject the theory of evolution. They don't believe what the theory of evolution says is in line with their beliefs. Oops, let me go back. Yeah, they reject the theory of evolution. They say it doesn't belong to their beliefs. And they also reject evolutionism. Remember what we said about evolutionism. And we're going to look at that in more detail in a moment. But evolutionism, remember, is not a scientific theory. It's a worldview that tries to use the theory. Okay? All right, so this is the young Earth creationists. They accept microevolution. They say the Earth is young. They reject the fossil records that show a pattern of change over time. They reject common ancestry, and they reject the theory of evolution, and they reject evolutionism. All right, so then we get to the next group, and this is the progressive creationists. Now, the progressive creationists, they're very similar. They also accept microevolution. However, you'll find that they say instead of the Earth being young, they say the Earth is old. And this is more in line, of course, with what the theory of evolution teaches. And they accept the fossil records. They accept that it shows a pattern of change over time. Now, this is where things start to differ. Some progressive evolutionists, they accept common ancestry, and some they reject it. Some believe that, yeah, there's a common ancestry out there. And others, they're like, no, there is none. And they reject, this is the reason why, they reject the theory of evolution as a complete model because they advocate that God guided at crucial points and miraculously intervened. So for some, the common ancestry is, yeah. And for others, they say, no, God miraculously intervened and created these certain types of animals. And that's where we come to. And of course, they also reject evolutionism, this worldview concerning evolution. So these are the progressive creationists. They accept microevolution. They say the Earth is old. They accept the fossil records. They show a pattern of change over time. And they reject the theory of evolution. All right, let's go on to the next one. The next one is, of course, evolutionary creationists. This is the category that we've heard Dr. Lamoureux talk about quite extensively. And evolutionary creationists, they accept microevolution. They say the Earth is old. They're not like young Earth creationists. They say the Earth is old, not young. They're like progressive creationists. They both agree that the Earth is old. They accept the fossil records that shows a pattern of change over time. This is just like progressive creationists. They differ from progressive creationists in that they accept the idea of common ancestry. And they accept the theory of evolution as a scientific model. Evolutionary creationists don't have a problem with this. Where we see that all Christians are in complete agreement is they all reject this worldview of evolutionism. Okay? So again, evolutionary creationists, they accept the microevolution. They say the Earth is old. They accept the fossil records that show a pattern of change over time. And they accept a common ancestry. They also accept the theory of evolution as a scientific model. They see it as a complete model. And of course, evolutionary creationists, just like progressive and just like young Earth, they all reject evolutionism. Okay, so these are the three categories that we looked at: young Earth creationists, progressive creationists, and evolutionary creationists, and where they stand with these five theories, these five definitions of evolution. All right, so let's take a quick review. Let's go back. Okay, so what we're seeing is that all Christians are united against evolutionism. All right, so here's the question again: what does evolutionism mean? Although we've just quizzed over it, I think we need to look at it again because I know we can sometimes forget. Evolutionism, it's not a science, but a set of worldviews, worldview beliefs. Evolutionism, not evolution. Okay, this is an important distinction. Evolutionism is not science, but a set of worldview beliefs. It refers to the ways in which some people try to use the theory of evolution to support certain atheistic beliefs. That's evolutionism. And really, it's characterized by these four objections. Evolutionism has four objections, and these objections they hold. Okay? So the first objection, they say there is no creator who cares for the world. That's their first objection. Their second objection is humans arose by purely natural processes without guidance or governance from God. They don't believe God had a role in any of this. Their third objection is that human existence has no higher purpose. This is a crucial one for everyone to really think about, because if you accept atheistic beliefs, then what you're saying is you have no higher purpose, that life is meaningless, that we eat, drink, because tomorrow we die. Yesterday, we celebrated the greatest day in history. We celebrated Resurrection Day, right? And the reason why we call it the greatest day in history is because it is on the basis of the resurrection that we can affirm that Christ is God. Because he rose from the grave. It's from resurrection that we can affirm that our sins are forgiven. Because as 1 Corinthians chapter 15 says, if there is no resurrection, then you're still dead in your sins. It's on the basis of the resurrection that we also have the hope that we're going to be resurrected again. And if we were to look at this third objection that evolutionism has, there is no higher purpose. This rejects that God has a purpose for you after life, in eternity, a higher purpose, a higher role. All right, so let's look at the fourth objection. The fourth objection, human morality is merely the result of heredity and environmental influences. There's no absolute morality. That means that it's okay to lie, it's okay to steal, it's okay to kill. It's okay to cause people pain. It's okay to do all of the things that we look as the evils, the social evils of the world. Right? All right, so those are these are why Christians are united against evolutionism, because we believe there is a creator who cares for the world. We believe that it isn't just by purely natural processes without governance from God. We believe that God is playing a role in creation, even though he uses tools of evolution. We believe that human existence has a higher purpose. We believe that Christ came to earth because he saw value in us. He created us for a purpose and has a purpose and wants to use us according to his purpose. We believe that human morality is given to us by God, that there is an absolute morality, right? All right, so these are where we're united against evolutionism. All right, so let's look at this. Here is a simplified argument of evolutionism. It's laid out in classical logical style. Number one, the first premise of this simplified argument: if the theory of evolution is true, then Christianity is false when it says that God created all the plants and animals. That's premise number one of the argument of evolutionism. Now again, I want to clarify and say there's a difference between evolution and evolutionism. We're drawing a difference here, okay? Because the theory of evolution is about science. Evolutionism is about a worldview set. Evolutionism is not about science. It's about a worldview. Theory of evolution is about science. Okay, so that's the first premise. If the theory of evolution is true, then Christianity is false when it says that God created all the plants and animals. All right, premise two. Science shows that the theory of evolution is true. It's a premise that evolutionism argues. Science shows that the theory of evolution is true. And the conclusion, if you use this logical argument, then it would say that Christianity is false. All right, let's break it down for a second. Young Earth creationists and progressive creationists, they attempt to attack premise two. They're attacking premise two, and they argue that scientific evidence does not support the theory of evolution. That's where young Earth and progressive creationists at. They're saying that we're going to attack this premise right here, premise two. Science shows the theory of evolution is true. That's where young Earth creationists and progressive creationists are at. Now, evolutionary creationists, they attack premise one. They argue the Bible does not teach against evolution, and God worked through biological evolution just as he does through other scientific natural processes. Now think about that. When you lay out your logical arguments, if you have if one of your premises is faulty, your conclusion will be faulty. So if your premise one, if you say premise one is true, then, and premise two is true, therefore, premise three, the conclusion must be true. This is the way this logical premises work. So young earth creationists and progressive creationists, they're attacking the second premise. Whereas evolutionary creationists, they're attacking the first premise. All right. There's a lot of information there on that slide, and I want to give you a few more moments to capture that because we're at the end of the lecture right now. This information I'm going to try to have in quiz form at the end of the week so you can kind of validate this, that you got this information down. All right, guys, any questions so far on the material? Do we need to go back to any previous slides for anyone? Sajin, you're okay? Anybody else? We need to go back? Everyone's good? Okay. If we got all thumbs up, I'm going to exit the slide and stop the recording.